Should be good to go.
Okay. Hello. It's late in the afternoon. Thank you for being patient and thank you for having me. I am most certainly, I've been referred to as an expert. I most certainly am not. I am in the trenches as you are. So I've got 3 girls and I am parenting along with you and I'm getting it wrong and I'm trying and I'm doing my homework, I promise I wouldn't, and I'm working really, really hard at it because it matters. And I guess more than anything today, what I was hoping to do is, what I do professionally is I am a psychologist. I try to serve at church with the children. Most importantly, I think that what I really love to do is take everything that I know as far as my clinical practice goes, and as much as I'm trying to learn around my spiritual life, and I try to create this synergy to be able to explain it all through a different lens. So I guess more than anything today is, yes, there is some overlap, and I have unfortunately put PowerPoint together and there are slides, but that's only just in case you want some of the detail about how that synergy works between what we know with science and empirically tested information, as well as what we know around what we've been as being stewards to our children. So that's really what I'm trying to do more than anything else today. But I thought we could have a little bit of fun. So yes, I usually bring props. We'll do that in a minute. But more than anything else is that I just wanted to go through some interesting things that I personally share with the kids every now and then, just to be able to plant some seeds around my understanding of what they're going through. Because I don't think it's exclusive to our kids. I don't think it's exclusive to any particular age. I think that even as adults, we go through some of these challenges as well. So I think it's interesting. So things like, we know that even if we show a kid a book being read online, we see the impact of that later on in their school years. When they're asked to write a story and imagine something as far as their creative writing is concerned, we're already seeing the impacts of how we're engaging with, kind of storybooks online. So when we go in and we look at YouTube and we say, this is so incredible, my favorite book, it's now online and there are pictures and there's someone reading it and there are accents and it's just so phenomenal. It's interesting that even though we're sitting side by side with them and we're still engaged with them and the content, there's nothing wrong with it, there is still an impact as far as what their brains are doing and how that's going, having that flow-on effect. So we're kind of robbing them of their imagination. We're robbing them of that opportunity to talk with them and to get them to think about it and almost see the story through their eyes. So it's really interesting to me that we see that. We also know that, we talk about educational apps and how great they are. But understand that even that is rewiring their brain, because what they're starting to think about is, unless learning is that fast and that colourful and that interactive, I'm not interested. So it's really interesting that we think, oh, but it's educational, this is so great. They get to school and they're like, oh, it's so boring. I'm like, fair enough. If this is what you're used to, sliding things around, having it go faster, have it kind of reward you and put the confetti, and I get engaged with it, but it's dangerous because what we know is that now that's how they're expecting to learn. So there are little things like this that I think is really important. I think we were talking just a couple of moments ago with another parent, and I said, 2 decades ago, when I signed up to this parenting thing, although God chooses it for us, I didn't know that this is what we'd be up against. It's really interesting that we thought that all we had to do is kind of do better than what our parents did. We didn't know that these were going to be the challenges that we were up against. And again, if you align it with science, 20 years ago, the average attention span was 2 minutes and 45 seconds, or 2.5 minutes. We could hold attention for about 2.5 minutes. 20 years later, we're down to 47 seconds. And you're lucky if you can do that. We I'll talk about myself. If it doesn't engage me in the first 10 seconds, I'm on to the next thing. Let's just keep it moving. I don't have much time. I want that reward. We see these things even as adults. Just two more things. The hard neurological truth is we talk about multitasking. We're not multitasking, we're brain switching, and it's actually slowing us down. And so, we kind of think of ourselves as going, I'm doing 3 or 4 things at once. Chances are I'm burning the food while I'm trying to do Kumon with the kids and listen to something or answer text. But we think we're multitasking, but really we're doing so much mentally that it's really quite taxing. Prefrontal cortex, this guy up here, where we do all of our executive function, where we're making decisions, where we're discerning, we're calculating things, we're understanding risk. And, kind of this is where we really want to be able to do our impulse control and our critical thinking. This part of the brain is not done until we're 25. We have to be careful what we're asking our kids to do. It has to be reasonable and it has to take that into account. So, surely we'll do a bit of an activity, but just keep that in mind. I'm going to whiz through this, but I thought just to kind of place where I'm coming at this. I'm really coming at this from a neurological perspective. I'm coming at it from an emotional and a social perspective. But more importantly, I'd like to switch it up a little bit to do what Abuna and Doc have done around really trying to understand our role as parents, the impact it has on us as adults, and trying to see it through their eyes. They're going through this as well. This is a new landscape, and we're best to kind of buddy up together and really understand it. So, really quickly, I kind of want to pose to you, very quickly, what do you use your devices for? Throw something at me. What do you use it for? Work? Yep. Shopping? Yes. Sport? Yes. Social, as in engaging with each other or connecting. Yep. What else? Entertainment. Excellent. Yes. Service. Yes. Even reaching out to our kids or our servants, arranging a meeting. Yes. Yes. So school. Yes. Compass and lunch orders. Who knew that we could do that online and not in a brown paper bag? Yes. Vacuuming. How? Abuna. How do you know how to do this, Abuna? Come over. Fantastic. So even chores. We're going to engage with our internal environment around chores as well. Games, entertainment, right? I need some downtime. I need to check out. The day has been huge. I need stress relief. I'm going to go to this little internet in my pocket, the world in my pocket, for it to serve me. But unfortunately, the way these devices are constructed is it ends up dictating how we think, what we do, and how much of it we do. I know we've all been in these moments where we've gone, I really don't like how much time I'm spending on the internet. And yet, like Abuna said, we do it. Why do we do it? We'll talk about that in a second. While technology has advanced at lightning speed, as Abuna said, have our needs changed? Do you think so? What our kids need from us, has it really changed? The world keeps telling us about how it's advanced and how much better it is and how it can really serve us. We haven't changed. So when we get swept away by all of this technology, unfortunately, it leaves us really, really empty. We get all this dopamine and we feel more empty than we did when we started. So we're actually on the back foot. And so it's important to understand that. When you are faced with a problem, how do you solve it? Google it. Yes. I told one of my kids the other day, we used to have to go to the library and look up a book. And they're like, oh my God, it's the worst ever. It's horrible to them. That instant. We could be sitting and arguing with someone about a Bible verse, a celebrity, a movie, the year that something was released, or even a school report. And within seconds, we have it at our fingertips. Yeah. Are we really problem solving anymore? No, it's doing all the solving for us. How do you think our kids are ever going to learn how to problem solve? Google. Ask Google, how do I learn how to problem solve? Yes. How will they ever learn how to problem solve? They have to see us do it. Yes. How else? Yeah, absolutely. It's giving them permission to say, you don't have to have the answer. I want to know what you think. I want to know what you want to try, and I'm right here with you. And it doesn't work out so well, and that doesn't feel so nice, but I wonder if we can try again. What else can you think of? Because in that, not only am I instilling in them confidence, not only am I journeying with them and showing them how to regulate your emotions when things don't go so well, but I'm also learning, or I'm also giving them an opportunity to try something, fail, try again, get creative, start really problem solving. But if I'm sitting with them and I'm rushed and they've got to do their homework and I've got to walk out the door because I've got that next thing, or I'm busy and I'm distracted and I've got to cook and I've got to get the next, I'm like, quick, get the answer, great. That's not problem solving. These are the sorts of things that technology is very relevant, and yet it's more about the whole landscape that we really want to kind of think about. One more question. What do you want for your children? As people, what do you want to teach them? What do you want them to walk away with? What do you want them to really learn? Right values. Excellent. How are you going to teach them that? Modeling. Okay, how do you do that? Google it. Yeah. Pardon? Call a friend. Yes. Yes. What do you want to teach them? What do you want them to know? How do you want to prepare them? Yes.
I want to teach them independence. I want them to fail.
Yes.
Try again.
Yes.
And as I said, like it's doing all of the things that are
Yes.
Saying that it's acceptable to fail, it's acceptable to try again, it's acceptable to keep going. And it's okay not to be the best, and it's okay to not be the best on the test, and it's okay to create class.
Yeah, right. But that's my words. How do I create an environment where we're enacting that?
I think the first thing and the challenge that Mark and I were talking about, time.
Yes.
You got to give it time.
Yes.
And then
How do you do that? I know what I want. I know what it take. How do I make that happen? Yes. What does that mean? I know, I'm so painful. I'm such a psych. Just keep asking questions. Don't give any of the solutions. Yes. Sacrifice. What does that mean? Say no to what? Yes. She should get a lolly. You can have it whenever. Good, because let's be honest, the reality is we want to send them to great schools. We want to live in a great area. We want to pay off our mortgage. We want to go on holidays. We want to spend time with them. We want to give them every opportunity. We want them to play sports. We want them to see their friends. We want them to learn how to use technology because they're going to use it for the rest of their lives. We want them to learn how to cook. We want to spend time with them. We want to laugh, and we want to exercise, and we want to... How am I going to let them fail and give them space to do that when I'm trying to do all of that? That's the reality, right? And it's almost being able to say, if I know what my priority is, perhaps all those other things can be secondary to that. Because ultimately, if I'm really thinking about preparing them for the world, they need to know how to regulate their emotions, and they need to know that they can fail and try again. And we want them to problem solve and to think critically. We want them to make good decisions so we can empower them and trust them. And we want them to trust us. and I want to have a good relationship with them. All of those other things have to fall secondary to this connection, this relationship. Guaranteed all those other things will happen if I just get that right first. But it's hard to make that decision. And as a collaborative effort, if you're in a partnership of two, we've got to come together and figure out how we're going to make that happen. And if it's a power of one, then I need a community to support me, because that's tough. But it is the most important and the most phenomenal gift that we can kind of give them. So with that in mind, I just want to race through a couple of things, because that was easy. Then, with all of that going on, we give our kids devices. Why do we give our kids devices? If we know the pitfalls, if we know all the issues with it, why do we give our kids devices? Yes, I've got some suggestions up there, because I talk to people, including an excuse. Because we're tired. Because we were doing all those other things, and we just need a minute. I just want a minute. Just go, and if you're with your siblings, I know you're going to erupt and kind of have that. And then if you're not, then you're going to come to me, because that's what you do. Because you're looking for me to serve that need. I'm exhausted. I'm depleted. I'm burnt out, because I'm trying to provide all these other things. But all they need is us. And when we give them a device, sometimes it's because of our own anxiety. Our anxiety says, I need to know where they are. And if I change my plans, I need to tell them where I'm going to pick them up. And then I need them to be able to call me if they feel sick. And then if they forget their hat, I don't want them to get it tomorrow. So if they just send me an SMS, then I'll go get the hat, and then I'll give it to them. But then I'll tell them, don't do that again. And I told them to get it in the morning. And all this other stuff happens, right? We give them devices half of the time for us. And the other half is because we think we're giving them what they actually need. But unfortunately, it comes with some dangers, that's all. I'm never going to stand up here and tell you what to do. I'm not even going to give you advice. I'm just going to say, have we considered these things? Because there are other things at play here, and perhaps we can restructure how to make this happen. So that everything that Abuna and Doc said is 100% right, and I'm fully supportive of that. But I just kind of thought maybe we could just scaffold a couple of questions to really be able to go socially, emotionally, and mentally, how do we prepare them for what's about to come? And even though the landscape has changed, their needs haven't changed at all. And maybe we can just simplify that, because it's good for us and it's really good for them. So there are reasons why we give them devices, and I'm not going to tell you if they're right or wrong. It's just a preference and it's a decision you've made. But there are some things that we have to consider. The ugly truth is that behind every screen, there are literally 1,000 engineers that have worked on how to make it addictive. So when I sit here and I say the greatest minds have figured out how to make this thing addictive, I think it's a bit of an ask to tell my 8-year-old, my 10-year-old, or even my 16-year-old, I want you to practice some control. I feel like that's a bit much. I feel like when it's a battle of what I'm saying, this is a Goliath. I feel like we're telling our kids, I know it's Goliath. I know that I can't armor you up, but I want you to give it a go anyway. I think we've got to be a bit more strategic. When the best mind, so I don't know how to say it, Azar Raskin, he's actually the guy, he's from Mozilla, for those of you who are old enough to remember Mozilla. He is the guy who came up with Scroll. And he is the same person who says, I came up with infinite scroll, and what I did is I made it so fast that it bypassed your executive function to make you not stop. How am I going to tell my child to stop? That this isn't finished till 25. And we both, I'll just talk about me. I know that there are some times where I can't stop. When are you most vulnerable to not scroll? Oh, sorry, to keep scrolling.
when you scroll.
When you're tired, what happens when you're tired? What goes to sleep? Prefrontal cortex. What's online? The emotional center that just kind of keeps the impulse going, and it makes you more anxious and more scared, but it keeps you addicted, and it's kind of this vicious cycle. The prefrontal cortex isn't done until we're 25. Prefrontal cortex goes to sleep at a particular hour, and when it gets too stressed, it just wants to check out. And the other part of the brain goes, I know what I'll do. I'll just do this motion. And the motion is designed to keep you addicted. It doesn't make you a bad person if you can't stop scrolling. It just means those thousands of people who are geniuses have got it right. And the worst part is they consulted psychologists and neuroscientists on how to do it. It's terrible. Tech companies from Silicon Valley have said, we know that the sooner we get kids and adolescents onto devices and make them addicted, we've got them for life. During COVID, what happened? Google Classroom, Google Docs, Google Sheets, and they just went, we've got you. We're going to facilitate all your learning. But what did they do? They did what McDonald's did when they came out with the Happy Meal. They go, we're going to make you a customer for life by making it addictive. We've now made you sticky client. We're done. We've done a really, really good job. So they're working at this behind the scenes. It's no surprise that we fall into the trap, but we need to be wise about what's going on. That's all. So when tobacco companies spend the equivalent of $24 million a day to market a product like vaping for our children, know that they're very good at what they did. And when we don't want our kids to do it, that's absolutely right. But to expect them to control it is an ask. So we have to do more work around being proactive about getting it right in the first place, getting the relationship so good that we are in a position of influence. No matter what we tell them, that's not enough. We need to be so close and so connected to them that we are now the main influence in their lives. And there's nothing so bad that they can do that we won't be there for them. But we just want to know what the landscape is, and that's actually the landscape. What do they not want to tell us? Silicon Valley, but all of these apps are created. They don't let their own children have devices. When you've got Bill Gates telling you he doesn't give his kid a device until they're 14, when you've got Steve Jobs, when he released the iPad, saying, when an interviewer said, so, how is it at home? And he goes, I won't let them use it at home. Know that they like the product, they think it's really cool, they've problem solved, they've gotten creative, they've done all sorts of wonderful things, but they don't like the impact that it has, so they keep it far away from their own children. There are so many schools in Silicon Valley because of who these execs are that say, we want schools. There's one school, I think it's the Waldorf in Silicon Valley, and they talk about this idea that they use blackboards and chalk and paper and pen until these kids are in year 8, year 9. And yet we're giving our kids these devices. I don't know about you, but my kids, they have BYOD, bring your own device, as early as grade 2, grade 3. I'm like, wait a minute. If the people who are developing it aren't giving it to their kids, why are you giving it to mine? And it facilitates learning, and it's sold as a great product, and then it makes them addicted, and then now we're stuck. So we just want to make sure that while they're at school, we understand what's happening, but when they're not, we can kind of control that narrative and control what's going on a little bit better. So, there are lots of former employees and execs who come out going, you know what, we know that this is hard. One of the first AI chief engineers said, you can't, and he said this in an interview in Business Insider, he goes, you can't put your face in a device and expect to develop a long-term attention span. That's not how we design the products. We design it to make it so fast and so gratifying, you're ready to move on to the next thing because you just got your dopamine hit and you're ready to move on. So remember that what we're asking our kids, when Doc was talking about this idea that ADHD assessments and traits are on the rise, we're developing these products and gratifying the brain so quickly that we can't maintain attention span. So on the surface, it looks like ADHD because it fits the bill, but we're rewiring the brain. And that's really the truth of it. We're now in a place where we are rewiring the brain. So that's kind of just some background. And again, this isn't to frighten anyone. It's just kind of looking at it through a different lens. Don't want to demonize it, but it is important. Some of the things that are important, again, for us to understand how it works, and Doc went through the neuroscience of it. I'm not clever enough to go through it the way he did, but I can tell you that there are certain features that they develop that make it that much more addictive. What is the difference between Netflix and TikTok? How long could you sit on Netflix looking at trailers and then get bored after about an hour and get out? A really long time. The minute you open TikTok as an app, what happens immediately? It plays immediately. What they figured out when they developed this app was remove the decision. Immediately it becomes gratifying. So there are certain features that they develop that make some apps more appealing than others. So that's why, for instance, with TikTok, you can go hours and not be able to stop because of two features. One, you're removing the decision point. I don't have to make a decision. I open it and it starts. It's using algorithms that tailor it to me. And as Doc suggested, it's using what we call the variable reward schedule, which says, I know how many good to bad reels, are they called reels? Videos? Reels? I'm not sure. Yes, reels, thank you. To give you to keep you going. You see, it knows, it's so smart in terms of the algorithms, that if I give you every cat or dog video that you like without a video that you don't like, you'll get bored. So it goes, you like it, you like it, you like it. I'm just going to throw a curveball in there. You're like, oh, I hate that. And I flick, and then on I go again. So what it did is it kept me there. And that's how it works. And these strategies up here are really quite fascinating to know. You know, the algorithms, we know about that. Push notifications, even behavioral nudges, like, you know, that leaderboard and the little, what is it called? Fireworks and the confetti. That keeps us going. It gives us a little bit of buzz. I'm like, oh, I'm leading. Oh, I'm third. And it does the ranking and it shuffles it. And then it redoes it. You're like, it keeps you engaged. That's how it's designed. So these are the sorts of things that, again, we just want to know that they are very well thought out. So we need to be able to know that.
I also noticed TikTok doesn't close when you try to close it. It plays again a few times.
Yeah. It just doesn't stop. And then in the meantime, you go, oh, that's not bad. I'll just stay on there a couple more seconds. And then it's, oh, just 4 more minutes. Oh, no, that's it. 12 minutes at 10:20, I'll close it. No, okay. So, and then you just keep going and then it just goes, it doesn't stop. So these are the sorts of things. Again, the reason why I tell you this is they've worked out what works in our brains. So we need to be smarter about not trying to just use self-control because they're using neurotransmitters to hook us. There's a difference between self-control and the way they kind of our brains are being wired. So we just want to be aware of that more than anything. So, you know, the kind of thing that they use is it's simple behavior plus repeated frequently plus variable reward equals addictive habit. Scroll, keep scrolling. I like it, don't like it. That's the behavior. That's the formula that keeps you hooked. Super simple, remarkably effective. Okay, that kind of transparency In psych terms, we talk psychoeducation. It's important for you to be aware of that, because the minute you have awareness, hopefully you're not so critical of yourself, and hopefully it means that you kind of think about it in a different way. There's an incredible book it's called The Craving Mind by Judson Brewer, and it's just incredible because he talks about this idea of craving and addiction and that cycle that just keeps going and going and going. And they can show you the neuroscience and the brain imaging that says, if I can get you hooked on video games, that same neural pathway can be used for vaping, alcohol, drugs, pornography, whatever it is. That neural pathway is now established. The addictive behavior is now there. It makes me more vulnerable to everything else. That's important for us to know. Because if kids spend a certain amount of time, we want to interrupt that, no matter how hard it is and no matter how tired we are, to go, no, I don't want your brain to be rewired. I want to be ahead of that. And having that kind of information is sometimes really important. So I don't know whether you know about this, but there's a new syndrome that they want to add to the DSM, which is the diagnostic book. Has anyone heard of phantom vibration syndrome? Have you ever kind of gone, oh, I think my phone's buzzing, and checked it? Oh, I checked it. And then I check it like 4 or 5 times. I'm like, what's with that? That's so weird. I keep feeling that. My brain wants a dopamine hit. It simulates a sensation for me to get that dopamine hit, even if there was no notification there at all. Right? And that really talks about how frequently we're using our phone. So recently, unfortunately, my eldest got a phone. And then I just sit there and watch her. It's very, very bad. I just sit on the couch and she's trying to study, but she has her phone on her. I know, I'm very sad that she got like her dad bought it. But we are one team. We got this stuff. And I sit there and I watch her. And I try not to be a psychologist. I'm just a curious mum. And the number of times she checks per minute, the thing's not buzzing. She's convinced it buzzed. And then I go, oh, are we being recorded? Oh. Child number 1, did you notice how many times you checked your phone? She's like, what are you talking about? I haven't checked my phone. There's no awareness. The syndrome is so good. It keeps it out of our conscious. It keeps it out of our consciousness so that it's just happening behind the scenes. It's just interesting in terms of adaptability of what our brain does in terms of behavior. We just want to know that so we can get ahead of it more than anything else. Okay, so that kind of thing is a real thing. You can look it up, phantom vibration syndrome. I don't think they'll get it into the DSM, but we should know about it. One of the things that is most critical, as Abuna said, is our role as parents. We know for a fact that the most critical role we can play is to be very, very present. So forgive me if this offends. I promise it's just an observation, because that's what I do. I just people watch. It's very bizarre. Have you ever gone to the playground and just watched what's going on? What was that? Yeah.
All the parents are on the phone.
Yes.
No one watching kids.
Yes. What are the kids doing? How many times, and you should do this, it's really fascinating, the number of times these kids are playing and the parent goes, I'm here. Just need a minute. And I get that. I promise you I get that. The number of times while these kids are playing where they look up and their parent is doing this, just makes my heart sad. Because one of the things that our kids need most is what we call, in terms of attachment framework, is what we call expressed delight. Expressed delight is, I catch my parents looking at me, just being me, and they are just beaming ear to ear. My sheer existence makes them happy. I wasn't even doing anything, but every time I look up, they're looking at me with real delight. I don't have to do anything for it. What do you think that does for a kid? Self-esteem. My sense of self is so good, I don't need to chase validation from anywhere else. Here's what's really interesting. I did this experiment too. Even an 18, 19 or 20-year-old lights up when a parent gives that. I'm not going to say that I've done it as an experiment or anything like that, but try it. Even if you've got older kids, like 13, 14, if they come out and you just deadpan them, sometimes what might they do? Why, what did I do? What's wrong? What are you looking at me? Immediately, it's, what have I done? If they walk into a room and you just light up, what do you think they do or say? They smile back going, what? It's so much softer. So when Abuna or Doc was talking about this idea that they need that tenderness from us. If they don't get it, they're going to go seek it somewhere else. And who is usually offering it? Their friends. We don't want them oriented to their friends. Why not? Why else? Fluctuating, yes. They're not consistent. Why else? They're not adults, but they're there for me. So where am I going to seek advice? From them. Now, what's different between my parents and my friends? Fundamentally, the prefrontal cortex modes. Definitely, I don't want you regulating with someone else with a brain that's not working. I haven't said that to my friends, my kids before. My kids will get therapy very soon. Just give them a referral. I'm like, I don't want you going to them. Their brains aren't even working. Not quite. What's the difference between a parent and a friend? What is a friend going to tell you? They're just going to try to make you happy. Yeah, you shouldn't do that. No, you shouldn't take that. No, the teacher is totally wrong. You shouldn't put up with that. You should totally just tell him off. What is a parent going to tell you? They're going to go, let's think about that. When you didn't get a grade that you thought you should get, let's talk about the rubric. What did the feedback say? So do you want to talk to your teacher about that? Do you want any help with that? You're just calming the whole thing down and encouraging the prefrontal cortex to come along. You're encouraging critical thinking. You're encouraging, kind of that problem solving. You're encouraging that sense of calm and patience. You're encouraging all these separate skills that their friends are not giving them. They want to find rest in us. They have to rest in our love. They can't work for our love. They can't work for our attention. They can't work for our patience. They just have to rest in us. I'm not saying I've got it right. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm getting it wrong, but at least I'm aware of what I'm getting wrong. Fundamentally, we want our kids to rest in us. And what we want to model is this sense of, I'm not necessarily going to tell you what you want to hear or what's going to make you happy all the time, but I will tell you what's good for you because I love you that much. And even if you don't like me for a minute, know that I love you so much that I want to do what it takes to make you a little bit unhappy. I want to model the very things that I think are really important. And there are five super critical things that we want to give our kids. And we'll talk about that on the next slide. But I want to model behavior around imitation and setting standards. It's hard for me after a long day not to just want to take a minute, but they need me then more than ever. So what do? What do? It's hard, right? Yes.
They trained us at work.
Yes.
So take a couple of minutes
Yes.
meditation or whatever
Yeah.
before starting the day, the rest of the day with the kids. So sometimes it's like, yeah, can you leave me for 5 minutes and I'll be with you?
Yes.
It works sometimes.
Yes.
Sometimes not.
What did you do just treat your kids if I said they shouldn't have to work for my love and my rest? What it means usually, I'm not blaming, I get it wrong, trust me, I get it so wrong all the time. If I work up until the last minute before I see the kids, then I need to tell the kids, just give me 5 minutes, I'm exhausted, you have to wait. What's happened to them 9 to 3:30 all day? Barrage after barrage after barrage after criticism after hurt after dart after teacher getting angry and frustrated and kids throwing things, and they're like, I need to rest somewhere. But my parents are going, wait a minute, before you need to rest in me, I have to rest. What did they learn? Yeah, they learn, I have to hold on to this by myself. And by the time you're ready, what has the kid learned? Shut that down, no time, they can't deal with me. This is when I get adults in the room going, I know I'm too much. I know I don't want to burden someone. I know that I shouldn't. These are the sorts of things that sometimes we hear later on in life when people really get anxious and depressed, when we as parents are working so hard, so genuinely hard at giving them everything we think they need. But the one thing they really need is what? Us. They need us. They don't need anything else. Like Abuna was saying, those 5 weeks on the floor, those kids had us and nothing else mattered. Because when we simplify everything and squish it down to size, then what we do is we go, yeah, I'm less stressed because I didn't have to work up until the last minute because I had to leave early. And so by the time I got you, my only priority was regulating you now. You need to rest and you can rest in me. And that's not too much for me. I can handle it. We want to let them know that we can handle it. Now, in order to do that, sometimes we have to make decisions as far as our life is concerned. But what do we also need? To regulate ourselves, how do we do that? Good, yes, good question, good answer. What Abuna and Doc were telling us is we have to go to our Heavenly Father first. So when the world tells us to meditate and ground ourselves, yes, in Him. We can rest in Him. In order to be that place for our kids, we have to find that rest in Him and hopefully in the partner that God gave me. We have to be that place of rest for each other as well. Because it used to be that we lived in a really big community. I had mum, I had my auntie, I had my grandfather, I had an uncle. I had this community that was there to back me up, that gave me a minute, that was supportive, that gave me that rest. We now live in a community of 2. And then we have to do all of this for our kids as well. And I know that, I'll talk for me. It's coming from a good place. I want to give them all of these things. But sometimes I get really overwhelmed by all of that. And then I'm not available to them in the way that I really want to be because I know they need to rest in me. I need to find that rest in Him as my Father. I need to find rest, hopefully, in my partner. And then hopefully, if we can restructure our lives and simplify it a little bit, then these other things come into line. I'm able to regulate me so I can regulate you. And you're not too much, I've got it. I'm able to kind of be patient and set expectations and be clear and be grounded and to be consistent. How much energy does that take when they come at us and come at us and come at us? It's their job to push right up until that boundary before we give them a quality no. That's their job because they're negotiating the world. They're figuring out how far do I push? So how serious are they? How consistent are they going to be? We can't do that if we're not rested, if we're not patient, if we haven't got our boundaries kind of communicated and already done. So those are the sorts of things that are really important to us. And the reason I mention it here and now is that technology, a lot of the time for adults, is an escape. I find rest in tuning out on a device. But what do we know? It's not rest. Now I'm overstimulated. Now I've seen a bunch of stuff that kind of triggered me. I saw a comment that I'm like, why would you say that? Why? What? No one said happy birthday to me, and all of a sudden they're now friends. They used to be friends with me. I was now there's so much real estate that takes up. So we've got to make sure, because when we're vulnerable, when we're tired, when we're not rested or regulated or patient, then all of a sudden those little things can really trigger us, and then we spiral, and then we go quiet. What do our kids think when we go quiet, when we shut down? Yeah. Kids up until a certain age, remember about all the way up to 7. So 0 to 3, we know that a lot of that brain wiring is happening. And that's why we don't want to get technology in the way. I don't want any of that distracting you from your wiring. From 3 to 7, they're really supposed to feel like the whole world revolves around them. Why do you think that is? Even though it's bothersome to us, we're like, who do you think you are? What? Of course that's okay. Of course you don't have to have that present. Of course, that's for the. Why do you think 3 to 7 is that critical time where they see the world through their lens? Yeah. Yeah. Think about how little they are. Have you ever thought about that? Every now and then I want you to drop to your knees, look at a shopping centre through a kid's eyes. How overwhelming is that? Bunch of big people, annoyed, silent, huffing, puffing, loud, laughing. It's a lot. Unless they were that cocky, they couldn't deal with the world. After 7, then they start to feel bad. And we want to be there going, no. You know, when some kids, you start to notice it. I'm sorry. They're just walking past someone. I'm sorry. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I wonder what's going on in their world. Like Abuna was saying, that tense environment. Remember that if anything's off, if people are angry, tense, kind of trigger happy in terms of emotions, not regulating emotions, the kid doesn't say what's wrong with them. The kid says, what have I done? So you start to see a lot of that overcompensating. We have to catch that. And we can't catch that if we're distracted. If our focus is stolen, we can't catch that. We have to be so finely attuned to them. That is our primary role. That is the most significant thing that you can do at that age. So express delight, attunement, safety and protection. There's 2 others. I always remember 3. Soothing and comfort, and support and encouragement. That's our job as parents. Those 5 things. You get those 5 things right, you get a really well-balanced, well-regulated, problem-solving, mentally well, emotionally, socially balanced adult over time. And that's where we want to be able to go. I want to create meaningful members, someone who reflects the image of Christ, and I know that their brains are working so hard. We see the exterior like, oh my God, you've grown so much. Think about what's going on inside. It's a chaos. How often do we think about and remember what it was like? Just remember for a minute, when people used to be upset at home or argue or tired, remember what that was like when you would just kind of, as a little person, kind of withdraw going, I don't like that. The other half of us kind of go really feisty. You kind of get those too. But we want to be able to catch that. So healthy emotional, cognitive, and social development is really about making sure that there are 10 fundamental things. And what's really important is that we want to develop that. We want to be able to give them space to grow. We want to hold the big picture, but we need capacity to do that. And so we want to leave them opportunity to do that because we want to be responsible for it. Because if there are any voids, they're going to go orient to their peers. And there's this incredible book by Dr. Gordon Neufeld. He's titled the book, Hold On to Your Kids. Hold on to your kids. You make sure you are the primary in their life. And it's just such a profound book. And a lot of his lectures, a lot of his teachings talks about, I won't talk about it now, but he talks about this idea that kids, when they act out, when you go overseas and you can't speak a language, what do? Google Translate. Google. No. Before Google Translate, what would you do? Sign language. If you wanted to know the time in a country that you should know, you're acting out. When I don't have the language and I need something, I'm going to act it out. And yet when our 3 or 4-year-old act out, we're like, don't worry about them, they're acting out. No, they don't have the language. Meet them at their level and help them regulate. Because if they know, if we're attuned to them, then don't tell my kids this. My kids think that I have eyes in the back of my head because I always know when something's off. I'm like, don't do that. Like, I'm in the other room. How do you know what I'm doing? I'm like, I don't know. I just watch you all the time. Not in a creepy way, but I sense when anything's different. And I'm not trying to control. I'm just going to go, you okay? Because even the way they walk out of school is enough for me to go, And so when they get in the car and they fire at each other, I'm like, got it. Got to deal with that. So in that moment, I'm tired. I had this romantic idea of what it would be like to pick them up. What would that be like? My God, I miss you so much. It's such a great day. Let's go out and sit in the park. So no, what happens? What happens? You breathed on me. Don't touch me. Just put your ear. And they just go off. What's been happening all day? They've been regulating their little hearts out. And now they have a safe space to just fire. And we have to stay calm. We have to stay calm no matter how tired we are. So if it means that we have to take some time out before we get them, then we have to do that. We have to restructure ourselves so that that's the primary goal when we see them. And if I've been consuming content and distracted and upset and addicted, and I kind of had that plummet that Doc's talking about in terms of that crash, and I feel a bit, then their petulance is just going to set me off. And now all of our amygdalas are firing at each other. The emotional center in our brain, that's what you're witnessing when you see siblings, or when you and your siblings used to go off at each other. 2 amygdalas, 3 amygdalas, 4 amygdalas are all firing. We can't join in. We just can't join in. And even though we get sucked into it, I'll say me. I won't say you, but I get sucked into it. But can't believe that you're so nice and I've only been with you for 2 minutes. And then it's just firing. You're like, oh, wait a minute. And breathe. So we really have to be aware of that. We have to know that attachment is about those 5 things. And it's not just science. The Bible tells us each of those 5 are well established. That feeling of safety is when we give them consistent physical and emotional presence. Don't just turn up to pick them up, and the first thing they see is you scrolling your phone until they get to you. They shouldn't see you first on your phone. Stop 2 minutes before the bell goes, because chances are they're looking out the window. Or they're looking for the car. Don't wait for them to turn up. Be there emotionally. Stand outside of the car. Be there. Express delight. Be there to catch them. And if they're a little bit off, be attuned enough to go, just give them a hug. Don't even use words. Because I know that you know this, but when you hug them, this beautiful chemical gets secreted in both of our brains, and it just floods your body. If you've ever felt your baby kind of melt into your arms after a really stressful day, my babies are taller than me now. It's very, very sad. So even my 13-year-old is up here. But when I hold her, because I can see her walkers off or her face is really kind of hardly regulated, and I hold her for long enough and she melts in my arms, I know oxytocin has done its job.
Yeah.
Don't ask. Just hold them. Know when it's time to talk and when it's time just to hold them. And we can't do that when we are flooded by our own kind of device use. And they are as well. So those sorts of things, and Proverbs talks about that. Feeling seen and known. Attunement. You know that feeling, I get couples in my rooms and even individuals who don't have great relationships with their families and so on and so forth. The one thing that they all say is, I just never felt heard or understood. There's an emptiness in that. And unfortunately, in my clinical rooms, unless they mention Christ, I can't mention it first, but I wish I could tell them, you are so known. You are so known. You are woven in your mother's womb, and there is one that just knows you, every hair on your head. Remember that when you need that first. Hold, watch your babies. You have to leave capacity to be able to do that. We can't be sucked into digital use, and we don't want them to be as well. Because if we fill their cups, that's half the work. But we need the capacity to be able to do that. And so there's this idea that self-esteem, as you said, and self-development comes along, and Colossians talks about that. When we talk about feeling valued, that expressed delight, I don't need to do anything. You see, the glorious thing about self-worth is we're born with it. And along the way, we can lose it. But if we have secure attachment, we never do. And that's when people, when we all know those people that you're just like, I just wish I was that confident. They know their worth. They never lost it. We never have to do anything to be worthy. God created us, and so that's enough. But somewhere along the line, we and sometimes our children will lose that. We want to correct it before it gets cemented. And if we're there, we can. We don't want the world to tell them. We don't want images to fill them with feelings of, oh, my legs. What about your legs? Oh, they're so big. I beg your pardon? Oh, but I'm so much bigger than everyone else. What are you talking about? But we can't say that from a cognitive level if that's what they're feeling. So if you say things like, don't be ridiculous, you've just minimized and dismissed what they believe. It's not a time to dismiss. Gentle reinforcement, gentle validation, turn up. Don't just use words, turn up. Feeling supported, in Deuteronomy, it talks about that. And then feeling that comfort. Psychology will tell you about emotional regulation. It's one of the most critical things that we can do for our children. Up until a certain age, we regulate. Then we help them regulate. Then we stand back, they regulate, but we're there always. They never get too old for that. So that's really, really important. So what we want for them is, yes, logical thinking, symbolic and meaningful use of ideas, problem solving, communication, engagement, shared attention, regulation, sensory processing. More than just, I want them to be successful. I want this for them. Success and happiness comes as a product. Viktor Frankl talks about this idea is the harder you try at success, the more you're going to miss. Try for something more meaningful, happiness and success follows. And so that's what we want to be able to provide them. And unfortunately, devices and screen time distracts them, reduces concentration and productivity, reduces their availability, and makes them vulnerable to depression and anxiety. Mostly, internet use is the exposure to inappropriate content. This idea that you can't unsee things. So I want to play gatekeeper with you. I would rather you draw something, create something, plant something, bake something, give something, visit someone, make a card, than play a game online where you are designing a phone cover. I'm like, let's just make a card and give it to someone, because when they're giving it to them and they see the person's gratification and delight, that fills them with something incredible. Playing a game, designing a phone cover, and then it's over, it's like, I guess I have to do that again to get the next buzz. We want to establish a different type of dopamine hit, something that is just filled with service and connection, that is so deep that they gravitate towards that. And there are critical times when we can do that. So more than just, we want to limit how much time they're online, we want to replace it. We want them to look forward to it. Orienting to peers. This is one of the most important things that we have to be careful of. One of the main reasons why we give our kids phones is because we don't want them to be left out. Is that a good enough reason? I'm not going to tell you what is and what isn't. That's yours, that's your family's. But what I can tell you is, as an example, one of my kids desperately wants a phone. We have a thing at home that says no. But one of the stories that she shares is when she says, I don't want to miss out. My question is not, don't be ridiculous. What are you missing out on? My question is, so tell me, how often do they speak? And she's like, well, last night they sent 800 messages to each other in a group chat. I'm like, right, I'm okay with you missing out. So okay. Now, I can't say that. Her experience is, I'm walking into school, they're all really close and connected, giggling about something because they've been up till 4:30 a.m. 800 messages between them. I'm horrified because I'm thinking about sleep quality, I'm thinking about attention, I'm thinking about emotional regulation. She's thinking, I'm on the out. And somewhere in between, I want you to be on the outside of that. And her experience of loneliness, I have to fill the void and an alternative. We can't just deny them because that's a whole separate problem. So we have to connect with them more and more intentionally than ever before and fill the void with something else. Acknowledge it and then go with it. Yeah.
So, knowing that at that age, their friends are very, very important, is it possible that we can fill in that? Because
Yes.
I know about that.
Yes. So some of the alternatives as an example, or what would you suggest?
What was the question?
Sorry.
Knowing how important friends are at that age, how would you fill that void? Because I don't think you can replace how important friends are, no matter what solution you would offer to them. That's just my thoughts. But it is a serious problem.
Yes. Because what you want to acknowledge is their need for connection. So let's talk about what groups. Now, with baby number one, the solution was you use my phone. And you can send some messages, but it's on my phone. It's not yours. Because I know the minute it's yours, it's unfiltered. So up until, I should be horrified that I said this out loud, up until year 12, she was still using, baby number one, was still using my phone in all of her group chats. They knew that it had to be filtered because it was still mum's. Now, I respected her boundary genuinely and didn't check it because I knew they were already filtering because they knew it was my phone. Funny story. I'm being recorded. Funny story. They were so horrified about our rules at home that they wanted to do a GoFundMe page just to go get her a phone. It's not a money thing, dude. But I like the ingenuity. Now use it somewhere else in your life. So this is where we go, I acknowledge the need for connection. Understand that I love you enough not to want to give you a phone. But if you want connection, here's the phone, and you get about 10 minutes every morning and 10 minutes every night. Not popular. No, they won't make them happy, but I'm not here to make them happy. I'm here to love them. And she's 13. And at the moment, there's all sorts of mess from, any kids? I hope this doesn't upset anyone. They're talking self-harm in the middle of the night. They're talking cutting in the middle of the night. And they walk into school the next morning and compare wounds. I don't want you on that group. So this is where you kind of go, if there are some groups, and this is where, again, God bless her cotton socks, she was on camp She was on camp, and the teacher said to me after the camp, God bless baby number 2. We were horse riding, and all the girls were having this drama and crying and throwing things and threatening suicide and leaving suicide notes. And she's on her horse going, what's going on? And she was completely oblivious to it because they had arranged all of this on the phone the night before. So there are times where they won't get it. And then all of a sudden their teacher says, you're incredible for not being engaged in that. But we have to wait that out. We just have to hold the space. We're going to negotiate or compromise 1 or 2 things and going, I know you have to tolerate this, and I'm sorry. I know it's hard. And we hold. And it's uncomfortable, and you're going to have to do uncomfortable things. So by the time it's done and all of this mess is settled, when they come out on the other side, the brain does catch up. And then at a particular age, they're like, I'm so glad you didn't let me. But we just have to hold the space in between and give some.
All right, devil's advocate.
Yeah.
You're also a Nazi.
Yes.
You're not negotiating.
Yes.
Uh,
Are you saying that about me? Because I'm agreeing. I'm like, yes, I am. Are you saying devil's advocate? Yes.
Today's society says you
Yes.
don't have consent to
Yes.
choose your child's gender.
Go. Yes.
Who do you
Go
think
fund me.
you are?
Yes.
Who's my phone?
Yes.
And then psychologically
Yes.
you're damaging them. And
Yes.
damaging the community.
What a
and
mess.
destroying their
Yes.
lives.
Yes.
So, like my approach personally,
Yes.
and we spoke about this,
Yes.
we pick the school we're going to put our child
Yes.
based on who's around them,
Yes.
who the kids are around
Yes.
them, the parents, the whole
Yes.
look that we're looking for.
Yes.
But more than the education itself,
Yes.
I'm looking at that.
Yes.
But at the same time, they're in society.
Yes.
So how do you isolate them,
Yes.
educate them,
Yes.
and give them, the tools to survive?
Right. So what I'm suggesting is if you give them safety and comfort, if you give them attunement, you give them support and encouragement, you give them all of that, you remain the main influence in their lives. It doesn't mean they like it. And you're going to go through I'll just talk about me. I'm going through some really rocky times. And usually, if you can do it with baby number 1, baby number 2 goes, I know how this is going to go, but I'll still fight it all the way. And they're supposed to. And it's not going to feel nice. And there's only so much we can control. But as long as that you know you love them, and that's why you're doing it, hopefully you can weather the storm. It's not a perfect answer. Did you want to say something? No. It's not, and I'm just talking from experience, and please anyone else, but
I just, maybe a complimentary statement to that. I see it from, I worry about at 17 or 18,
yes,
giving them everything.
yes,
So you want to find a way
yes,
to stagger everything I want to give them in a way. So I want to give them a phone, but lock everything down.
yes,
And then maybe one social media, and then lock everything down.
yes,
Like find a way to introduce them to that world under control so that they're learning the same way we teach them, how to ride a bike with
training wheels,
with training
and then
wheels.
we go, yes. So I'm not here to say yes or no. I'll tell you this, which is why I had this. You ready? So give this to a 14-year-old. What's going to happen? They're going to eat all of it, yes? Do they know that they shouldn't? Yes. What's happening in their brain? And then they're going to go, oh, but they still did it. So then I go, all right, lock it. What are they going to do? Even if it's not them, they're friends. All I'm suggesting is we have to understand neurologically what we're up against. We are up against thousands of engineers that are going to target the brain and bypass you. That's all. All we're saying delay it as long as you can. You figure out how long that is. How long can you tolerate it? That's your family's decision. But I'm not suggesting that there wasn't daily education. And I go through the back door. You always listen. You never weaponize. So they say, oh, the girls last night were up till 4:30 and sending 800 messages. You go, oh yeah, bank it, leave it. And then when they say, the girls have been so tired, they can't even function, they were fighting with each other about the microwave in the common room because of the smell. I'm like, oh yeah, why do you think that is? I don't know, they must have been tired. I'm like, probably. I mean, genuinely, like they must have been genuinely tired if they were talking all that time, because they must be, and it's genuine. But I can't weaponize what they give me, but that's implicit learning. So when I say, you're not getting a phone until you're done year 12 because I love you that much and I know how powerful it is, and this isn't a self-control thing, I'm not going to blame you. But gently, I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. So that's what these were, right? So I'm very much a geek at home. Very much a geek. Anyone knows that? They're laughing at me. They know me. They're family. Oh dear, don't do that. Oh, I'm so not popular. My kids' friends all think I'm nutsies. So I go, let's play a game. You've been talking about a phone and how miserable it is. Let's play a game. All right, so here's some cards. Go. Read those out.
Truth or lie? And we play a game at home.
Screen time is always educational.
Truth or lie? Lie. Flip it.
Not all screen time is beneficial. Passive screen time can harm cognitive development.
Right. So they're like, what's cognitive development? Oh, it's just this area up here. I don't get too geeky, but that should be rewarded. I was using it for a different client. But you go, okay, let's mix it up. Good. Okay. This is a really good one. Truth or lie?
Kids need technology to keep up with their peers.
Truth or lie? That's not what the world tells us. What does the world tell us? We need to equip them. It's a technological world. They don't need very much. They don't need very much to learn. They're incredibly savvy. They are so savvy, they don't need us to give them a device. They will figure it out within seconds. It's a lie. Why is it a lie? Because we know that app companies don't get their next lot of funding until they get a certain number of people engaging with their apps. So they tell us, Google Classroom, that's the way of the future. No, we haven't developed that much that we need to learn in a different way. We are better off with problem solving and fine motor skills and development and not our thumbs. Apes use their thumbs. We use our hands. So we go, you know what, that's really interesting. And you have a laugh about it. You don't get too serious. So let's play a game. And you push them. And then sometimes you go, no way, come on, no, totally. And they go, no, seriously, like my friends. And they'll share. Engage them, educate them, get them advocating. It doesn't mean they'll like it. But at some point, hopefully it comes together and you get on the same page. Because what we do know is if we escalate with them, we use this infinity, right? Which usually means they say something, it disappoints us. Do you know how hard it is to say no to you? Don't you think it would be easy for me to give you a device? Surely you know that, right? And they're like, well, then why don't you just give me one then? Because I love you, blah, blah, blah. And then escalate, right? You go in this infinity because we're sad. We want you to love me. I want you to love me. I want you to know that it's for your good. But they're not there yet. But as long as they know it in every action, because when they melt in your arms, you go, okay, you do know it. And that's all that matters. So it's almost holding that bigger picture. You play games. You go, more than the lies and the truth, what I want you to know is, and what I want you to learn is these things. And we talk about that. Right? And so it's almost engaging them in a different way and preparing them for it.
without giving it to them because we know it's stacked against them. That's all. But you decide in your family what that looks like, and you know your kids. Every kid is different. Some kids genuinely already struggle with impulse control. The last thing they need is these engineers going up against them. Whereas some other kids genuinely are just that really temperamentally, really calm, really balanced, really full kid that doesn't really need it. It doesn't mean they won't be hooked, but it just means they won't chase it so much. You know your kids. So all you're doing is delaying it as much as possible. You know it's going to be a reality at some point. We fall into the addiction trap. How are they not going to? So really quickly, because I've taken all the time. Problems with devices, I can send this to you. These are the 10 and the scriptural references as well. Again, everything I like to do is taking what we know in science and aligning it to what the Bible tells us all the time. The Bible, all we needed to do was read the Bible, but sometimes the practical strategy of implementing it, that's where science helps us. Like when I was talking about that infinity cycle, how to slow it down, exit with them. It's helpful when someone does that study to be able to exit it and to give us those tools. But the Bible tells us that. It said it's slow to wrath. So those are the 10 there. I was going to do a case study, but I think answering the questions is probably more relevant. So I'll try to do that. Skip that. No. Creating change through community. One of the things that I'm really passionate about and why Gina was so kind to invite me to come along is one of the things that we can do is support each other. So as an example, when we say no devices, no notifications, bring out the physical Bible at home, not devices. Bring out the Agbeya, not the app. Right? And it's just reinforcing it. What would be really helpful if that's what we did in Sunday school, because it just solidifies it. Because even though school says that's how the online learning, hopefully as a church, we go, you know what would be really good if you just picked up your Bible, no distraction, just you and God. You know that Agbeya? Put it in your pocket, grab it whenever you want. That's yours. That's your time. And we know that calms them, that grounds them. And we want them to catch us doing it because we're just doing it. Not using our phones because it's easier because we're carrying it with us. Carry your Agbeya. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying we could model it. Finding the balance, because we know that unfortunately, when we try to do all of this, all we're doing is creating well-adjusted outcasts. But if they can kind of come in a community of other outcasts in our church, that would be great to be able to kind of reinforce that. You know, feeling like that is avoidable, that home and church can be different would be beautiful if we could kind of reinforce that. Restrictions over time we know work, but we have to give them alternatives. So when my kid goes, I'm bored, I'm like, cool, what do you want to do? Not, oh, come on, we just finished. We just got back home. Use it as an opportunity. Go, oh, that's really cool. So what do you want to do? Because here's the list. Like the painting's out. You want to give that a go? No, I don't want that. I'm like, okay, I trust that you're going to come up with something. Why don't you grab a snack and think about that? They're like, oh, all right. Oh. You want them to be able to spend time alone and figure it out. Tolerate boredom. See it as an opportunity for them to figure that out. And thinking about non-tech activities, do some background checks. If my kid draws, put something in front of them. Don't go, oh, why don't you go get a pencil and a pen and just put it in a little study nook somewhere to make it easy. Make it a paint by numbers and make sure that the pot is kind of already half open. So you're almost bypassing this area that goes, oh, I don't want to do that. Oh, God, I can't be bothered. In my house, if you say can't be bothered, you get fined. Can't say can't be bothered. But it's almost kind of inviting them and coming up with other alternatives. Model good behaviour. Make sure that our phone is not our master. We know that if our phone pings, don't look at it. It's okay. It'll wait. it will wait. Because we know the vibration, remember that phantom phone syndrome? We respond every time and our body knows it. Don't leave it, tolerate it, put it in a different room. If you say Sunday is tech free, do it. If you say let's go out to the park, leave your phone behind. If you say you've got to catch the tram home, going, I trust that you can do that. And if you need anything, I trust that you'd stop off at a servo and ask for directions. I know you've got this. Because otherwise we breed anxious kids. And if we track them, now we're anxious and we have our own checking OCD behaviors. Tolerate it, trust it. We want that sense of independence. We want to nurture that sense of empowerment. You come to me, how'd you go? Nice one. You mean it went wrong and you managed it? Nice, I like it. Good. That's a good thing. We want them to be able to tolerate being uncomfortable because the world keeps telling them comfort zone is where you're at. So we get socially anxious, depressed kids who don't want to do anything, who don't know where to go in life, who are lost. Don't want that for them. Really don't. Hold on to your kids. We need to lead our children. And that's the summary, but I think that's enough and there's some resources.
That was absolutely phenomenal. Honestly, a lot of the things you said really resonated with me. And I'll say this in front of everybody. Rosemary actually made my oldest Ileana love Sunday school again. So you are doing a phenomenal job, not just with your girls, but other people's girls as well. So thank you. We really do appreciate it. Okay. I know we're coming to the end of the day, so I'm going to call on Simon. We're going to open it now to all your questions that you have for any of the speakers. So now's your chance to just ask the final questions or any final thoughts.
This one is for Rosemary. You were talking about sort of that delight when you see your kids, like the delight when you see your kids. And I have a problem. I work from home, and they get home at 4, and I often finish 5:30, possibly 6. If I'm driving them home, I finish even later. So I always have this trouble. And my youngest, I've seen her do it. She'd go, when are you finished with your last meeting, Dad? So you can come give me attention. I always have this trouble. Like it's an interesting one, and I don't know what to do about it. I try to be there as much as possible, unless they walk in at the exact same second I'm having a meeting. But working from home has always been is sort of challenged with being completely disconnected and being
So I know with some of my clients, what we talk about is this idea of having a ritual. If I can't be there, how do I show them that I'm still thinking about them? Whether it is a note or a little video or a little message or a voice recording or something that tells them I'm still connected to you and I can't wait. I really can't wait. And here's what we're going to do when I finish. So it gives them something to look forward to in terms of that connection. And I always want to give them an opportunity to say, as soon as you're finished school, I can't wait to finish. Just jot down the things so that we can talk about it when I'm done. That's helping with the emotional regulation. It's helping with that kind of that I can still rest in you because I'm looking forward to that. And it's keeping me connected to you because I know that you care. And when I finish, I'm like, where is that list? I want to know. Oh, sorry. Where is that? But you want to be that expressive. You kind of want to go, I couldn't wait to finish. I could not wait for that person to hang up because I couldn't wait to know. That's still expressed delight. It's not as timely as we would love it, but that's when you really want to amp it up and going, I care that much. I care about every word you have and every experience that you've had. And so that's what's still binding us together, because that's really what I want to let them know. Not, oh, no, it's fine. It was fine. No, I really want to know. Oh, but, and they're over it. So there's a way to capture it sometimes. A voice recording, a message, a little diary, shared notes. Even if unfortunately you can't read it, put it under the door. And I'm kind of see what I can do. And then as soon as I'm done, let's pick it up where I left. So it's just kind of maintaining that. that excitement and that rest factor. I don't know if anyone has any other kind of suggestions, but it's kind of sorry.
Even if you can just excuse whoever you're talking to and say, I will be back in 1 minute, and give them that hug and come back. I know someone that used to do that, and actually, because she's not really that fussy, she's like, oh, you're lucky. Like she would talk to the one that she's speaking to on the screen, saying, you're lucky actually seeing my kids or hearing them coming back from school. And she would do it in front of her clients, but that was her business, so she had that bit of flexibility. But if you can do that, that would be great.
Questions?
Just a quick question, like if you can't be there all the time with their school activities, right? Like if you have 2 kids or more, what you can do? Like, or does it leave like a bad impact for them that you're not there, especially with the little kids, like when they see the other parents around and you're not there? So yeah, what do you do?
It's really, really hard, right? Because you know, again, that they're looking for you and they're looking at their friends going, ah. So this is where, again, it's almost the preparation. Let's look at the newsletter together every week and think about the plan and the calendar, and it's planning ahead. And it's being able to say, well, I'm probably going to be able to make it to 2 things this month. Which 2 things did you want me to try and come to? And so they feel like there's almost an opportunity for them to prioritize. And of course, we can't always accommodate, but there's almost this planning process, this empowerment and engagement process where I'm deferring to you going, so which 2 things? Like, do you think the sports or the swimming or which one? And it's almost kind of going, okay, so that's the one I'm going to ask, and I'm trying to everything that I can. And if I can't do that, what other thing do you want me to? And again, it's almost giving them that sense that, oh, I tried, or mum tried, and then I feel bad, to, no, I was part of that conversation. And it's not ideal, but again, this is part of the learning to tolerate that I'm going to miss out sometimes, and that's really, really sad. But I'm holding them physically. Again, oxytocin is a beautiful thing, to be able to go, let's negotiate that. And this connection, even negotiating, isn't a sad, it's a, let's problem solve. Let's think about that. Which one? What do you think? And it's kind of that engagement process. That's part of the almost that decision tree.
Just there's not a question, but 2 comments. One for Rose, and for everyone. There's a really good documentary. It was on Netflix, probably still is there, that will validate 2 things that you said. It's called The Social Dilemma, and it's about the guys who were at Google and Facebook that created the like button, and then they left Google and Facebook and all that, and then they spoke against it, and they created it to that addiction, but they also speak about not giving the kids devices. So it's really, really interesting how these people created that for that addiction. So that's very good. And the other thing I really like from Abuna Kronos, which is, I love everything you said, but about the building blocks to give to the Holy Spirit. I think it's important that we get out of our own busyness of life, and every morning we, with the kids together, give the Holy Spirit some building blocks with them so that the Holy Spirit can support them throughout the day. Sometimes we get out, we rush out of home, we get into this really bad habit where they're busy, they don't want to get out of bed, etc. And suddenly they're off to school, and we haven't given the Holy Spirit any ammunition or any building blocks with them. It's not. I think we need together not just pray for ourselves, but we need to get with the kids together and support them and give the Holy Spirit some ammunition. Thanks.
So my question is about, as a parent, if you are trying to explain what we should do, what we shouldn't do, and you are trying to explain about the right choices and the bad choices, and they are doing sometimes bad choices, what do you think about the consequence point, or what we should do?
Yeah, but isn't that beautiful that you're not saying we're trying to avoid, is that a good decision or a bad decision? We're almost looking, and please, and everyone else correct me, but it's almost like, let's play that out, depending on their age. What would be the consequences of that decision versus the other decision? Let's play it out. And what we're doing is we're training the brain, even though it's developmentally. Remember that prefrontal cortex and the amygdala isn't finished until around 25. That's why you get young people making risky decisions, going, surely you knew that was going to happen. They genuinely don't. They genuinely haven't thought about that. That area of the brain, we're asking too much. Like when I said to Rami, what are you going to do? That they know it's wrong, but they can't necessarily stop it. So we have to almost meet them where they are. But what we can do is invite them into the train of thought. So if that happens, what do you think? Well, that would be it. That's interesting that you think that would be it. I would have thought that maybe if you had caught the tram with your friends, or this happened, you didn't catch the tram when I expected, because I'm always listening to the stairs when they come up. And I go, well, I got really worried. Oh, but my friend was sick and she was crying and she didn't know what to do, so I waited with her. I'm like, so, when you made that decision, well, I just felt bad for her. Okay, so I appreciate that. And that was really kind of you to do then and there. So I'm not going to shame her. And I go, so if that had happened, and then I kind of go, what would be this kind of sequence of events? Or when you've got two decisions in front of you, what would happen if you chose to take this instead of that? Let's play it out. You always want to encourage them to take the next step. And this is where you're kind of in getting, you're the main person of influence. And because they trust you and you're open, you're saying, I'm right here with you. I'm engaged with you. I'm responsive. Let's think this out together. And at that point, I have to empower them to go, okay, why don't you give it a choice? Because it looks like it's not so risky and it's just going to be a preference. And I always want to use language that encourages them, because we want to give them the confidence to make decisions. Because again, I've got so many 20, 25, 30-year-olds in my rooms going, I'm lost. I've done 2 degrees, I've got all this HECS debt, and I have no idea what to do next, because they're so afraid to make any decision. I'm like, make a decision, but they're so afraid. So we want to go, if we play it out and it's okay, then why don't you do it, and let's talk about that when it happens. No shame. But if it's clearly wrong, clearly the consequence, and we're talking about the consequences of that are, or if you think, like Abuna was saying, the devil always starts with a suggestion. We're training them into that, going, that doesn't sound like something that you would do. I wonder where that thought came from. Oh, my friend said, or I saw it online. I go, that's really interesting. It just doesn't sound like you. It doesn't sound like someone with your character and integrity would have thought of that by yourself. I wonder maybe if you could just resist that thought. Maybe let's just let that pass. What else could we do instead? So again, I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm like, I don't know that that's okay. It's not you. It's not a good thing to kind of explore. Let's try something else, and then they can reflect on it maybe.
Just on this note, because when we talk about consequences, sometimes we want to touch upon consequences of somebody's wrong decisions. So that takes us into the point of discipline and reward. And I think that this is might have been the point you'll get into as well. What's the consequences of their action, the wrong actions? And I think that the pitfall that we fall into is that often in our parenting, and unfortunately this is often the way we were parented, is that love, even though that love is always there, but the show of love often is conditional. And the hug or the big smile is because they've done something good, and a bit of a frown or not as big a smile is because they've done something bad. And we think that this is the way that I can reward or discipline a certain action. And that's a problem, because they know that the love is conditional, and that's where they will run away. And the point of consequences of wrong actions is that you can still discipline. This is something that we really need to train ourselves to do, is that you should be able to discipline and the love can still be there. So how can you do that? How can you be upset about something they have done and still show love? Yes, we can. You should be able, Philip Malak is one of the kind of great psychologist, Christian guy, he always says that you should be able to discipline your child while she's sitting on your lap or he's sitting on your lap. And the problem is that often we discipline because we feel offended. We discipline because we feel disappointed. We discipline because we feel that we've been let down or we're losing control. And then what comes out is something that is rewarding me. So I'm telling him or her off because they were not what I expected them. So it is stepping back and saying, what am I disciplining them for? What I want to pass on? Am I passing on a feeling? Am I passing on a feeling of disappointment? Or I want to tell them, I love you, but you could have done that this way. So you should be able to, if you discipline and you still pass on the love, so sorry, I will have to not allow you to do this. I will take that away. You will have to stay in your room. But they are not getting the feeling of resentment or disappointment, you're getting the feeling of, this is because I love you still. So you can still continue to discipline. It's not anti-love, but it's the way you show it. So that point of discipline, where you're stemming from, will make all the results. I hope this answers it.
And I think that a lot of, like, as a family, there should be kind of like non-negotiables. As a family, these are our family values and they're aligned to the commandments. They're aligned to us reflecting Christ. We don't negotiate on those. Everything else we can talk about, is this a good decision? Is this a bad decision? We want to be firm, but we have to show love, and it's finding that sweet spot. You know, they talk about this dimension, you know, permissive and firm, love and aggressive. Permissive, anything goes, and love is one of the worst things you could do. It's not an everything goes. As a family, these are non-negotiables. One of the priests said the most beautiful thing, and they said that what one generation thinks is optional, the next generation will find it unnecessary. If we as a family say, well, I have a party, but it's Sunday, and we normally go to church, that's a non-negotiable for us. We don't talk about that. It's just a no. Because if I let you know that that's optional, by the time you're older and you have a family, you might say it's unnecessary entirely. So there are some things that you just want to go, this is us. We don't even talk about that. Everything else we can kind of talk about. And we want to be firm and loving.
Me? I've got 2 questions and a comment. Hi, Rose. My first question is our 5 jobs as a parent. I completely couldn't write down fast, like I was really slow. Can you go over them again?
Yes. So secure attachment, when they talk about, and this is again reinforced by the Bible, we talk about safety and protection. We talk about attunement. I just know you so well. I know when things are really good and when things are really off. Soothing and comfort. That really talks about, I know how to comfort you and when to comfort you. Expressed delight. I just light up. Your sheer existence makes me happy. And support and encouragement for self-development. That's let's talk about this decision. How is that going to play out? What do you want to do? That's your preference. As long as it's aligned to our values and our faith, then we can talk about that.
Thank you. My next question is, I'm trying to do the educating as I get the requests. So can we get copies of your cards that you've made? The game?
Yes.
Yes, I know. I would love that.
All children are going to hate
Yeah. And my third comment is that I'm trying to delay things as much as possible. And I tell people that's my strategy, that I'll just delay for as long as I can. And they say to me, nah, you're delusional, you think you're going to be able to do it, but they're going to hit high school and you're not going to be able to do it. And I say to them, I actually know one person that has. And so you're my idol. And I hope that I can achieve that too.
When you said they do a mistake and then we run them back to their decision and say, what do you think would happen when you did that? decision. Sometimes, as you said, the brain is not there. So they don't have that big picture of, and so what can go wrong, and they don't even have this, so
And
sometimes
That's when
there's no
we're
conversation.
we're their executive function. We just make the call, firm with love. You're not capable of making that decision. I have big picture. I love you that much. I'm going to make this decision. You're not going to like it, but you're going to see the value in it in time, and I'm going to hold you through it. And it feels awful when they don't like you. It's so hard. But you know that God, with God's strength, with the wisdom to raise them up in the right way, to train them up in the right way. The Bible never said, and I like you for it. They just said, this is what you've been tasked to do. When we stood in that baptism room and we said, okay, I'm doing this, we're just going to take it and it's going to throw all sorts of things at us. Just wish them luck.
Was there any other questions? Take maybe two more, I think.
Rosemary, I was just going to ask you, for your personal opinion, where do you think all the technologies around locking down social media and all those things sit, given that after listening to your talk, it feels like it's kind of an excuse for me as a parent to feel better about giving my child a device earlier, because I don't want to sit in the discomfort of that kind of push and pull to delay for as long as possible. So where do you think that sits?
Just personal. I always evaluate the cost. What is the cost of me making that decision? And if the cost is too high, then once I know what I have to do, then it's praying for the strength to do what I have to do, which is the how. So I'm not saying it's right or wrong, genuinely. It was just a preference for us. And it's really nice that when baby number one finished, she's like, I never could have done it if you hadn't have done what you did. I hated it and I hated what you did, but she never said I hated you. So I'm like, and that's the firm but love. When they see in your face, this is really uncomfortable for me, but I just don't see how this is going to be good for you. And if you can tell me how it's going to be okay, then let's talk about that. But I just don't see how this is going to be good for you. And it was a personal thing. Just don't see how it's going to be good for you or our family. Because when we sit around on a Friday night playing games now that she has a device, it's like check, put it away, and then we kind of spiral again. But it was so nice for that first 18 years to go, I didn't want to have to be up against that. I just had you. I just want that as the foundation. So that's what the delaying does. It just goes, I want all of you, and I want you to know this family and be connected to this family. Can we tolerate all that noise as far as possible? And then we go with it. But there's almost a reprieve. Yeah, that's all.
One more?
Yeah, thanks. I found this talk really, really powerful, but I did have a question around how you said now that it's up to the parents and you want your kids to orient towards the parents, the two of you. Now, with society and with the demands of everything, just absolutely everything that parents have to do for our kids and for our lifestyle and et cetera, when there's that default parent that does, a lot of the hard conversations and the nurturing and all that stuff that you're talking about, what's the outcome for the kid down the line? Sorry, it's like a loaded question.
What does that mean down the line?
So as the kids grow up and they do become independent and, how effective is it when there's that, there's two parents present, but one is the default parent?
Yeah. I mean, it's not uncommon, right? It's not uncommon because sometimes that's the default parent, but it swings and roundabout depending on the age and the personality of the child. So sometimes it's mum's the favorite, but depending on the character and the personality of the child, they'll orient to me for a while. Then they'll go to dad for a while, who's maybe a bit more permissive, but still firm. But then they'll kind of come back at different stages. So what you want is at a minimum, if we can be on the same page around our family values, we're going to take different roles depending on capacity and depending on the kid's personality. I think that they go through different seasons of orienting to one more than the other. And it can be, for some children, as an example, depending on the personality fit and match with a parent, they're like, I really like that. So they'll always use you as an anchor. And then once you get through a particular season with another child, they orient to the other parent because it's just the personality mix. But you just play different roles. And as long as you're leaning into each other so that one parent doesn't burn out, that's the most important thing. Because one parent, if they are doing a lot of that firm and love, can burn out. And so if we can just offload between us and going, well, we have different strengths, same values, different strengths, different roles, but we're balancing it out so one of us doesn't burn out. That's really, really important, because I think that's, again, when we're talking about that consistency between the parents. At a minimum, we have to be singing from the same songbook, but we can take different roles. And we have to be balancing that all the time, and depending on where they are in stages as well. I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Yeah, it does. I just feel like these days there's always that default parent.
Yeah.
And like, I know like when I was pregnant last year and I became really unwell, I realized how much of a default parent I was.
Yeah.
But I mean, Tony was able to pick up the slack. But then I was just wondering, if we're not doing those 5 jobs consistently together all the time, is that going to be as effective?
Yeah, genuinely, as far as the science is concerned, the empirical evidence around secure attachment, so you can look it up, attachment theory, John Bowlby, 1940s, it's been studied ever since then. It helps in different therapies that we use. As long as one is doing it consistently, and it could even be a grandparent in a really dysfunctional family, it can be an aunt, and as long as the child is having those needs fulfilled, and you're reinforcing their relationship to God, who is, and that's what's different, I guess, about our faith. In therapy, we talk about orient to a partner, to a parent, to a grandparent, whatever, primary attachment figure. We want our primary attachment figure to be our Heavenly Father. And we want to train our kids to look to Him while we play that role here. All we want to do is imitate the role that God plays for them all the time. And so this is where we kind of bring out the commandments as well. You know, and a kid will go, oh, I'd just die if anything happened to you. You go, you know what? That would be so sad. I would hate that. But you know what is most important? That your Heavenly Father is here always. Because sometimes I'm going to get busy at work, and sometimes I'm going to get things wrong, and I'm sorry, and I will apologize when I get it wrong. But do you know who's perfect? God. He's always there. Just know He's always there. And so this is when I go, you know, the Thanksgiving prayer, I'm like, oh, I love that line when it says, and I quote it. And so that kind of sticks in their brain. So again, I'm kind of imitating, role modeling that. Or I'll say, you know, when I'm really, really sad, there's this one prayer that I'll always do. Can you read it with me? Because I could really use your prayer right now. And so I'm feeling the support of going to God. I'm feeling the relief of knowing that I can share that with our Heavenly Father and with my spouse as well. And the kid gets what they need, I think, as well. Yeah.
Just one small thing to add. Like Rose said, as long as the children are receiving this input, is very important. When it comes to a spiritual input, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to connecting with Christ, the fathers have got an immense role. So all these 5 roles, they can interchange and they can share it together with members of the family, and actually with the spiritual father as well, and with the immediate support. I just want to stress the importance of the father figure in the family as a reflection of Christ as the leader, so that the kids will always look at the father, especially as a reflection of Christ. And that's why, regardless of who takes which role, in terms of spiritual leadership, studies have shown that 60 to 80% of the connection to church and to God will come from the father, no matter how much the mother is doing. If the father is taking a step back in terms of spiritual leadership, there will be the whole connection will be compromised. So I just want to encourage the father to lead as Christ has asked them to lead in terms of spiritual leadership.
Thank you so much, and I'm so sorry we've ran out of time today, but please send us your questions and we'll try to get some answers for you. I really want to thank you all for joining us today, but thank our speakers as well. They've dedicated their whole Sunday to be with us here today, so we've got something small for them that will come around and give to them. But we really want to hear from you what we've done well and what we haven't done well. So if I can get you to